Okay guys, so we are going to continue today looking at what we started on Monday, which was we were talking about slopes of lines. We're going to continue to look at slopes of lines. I'm going to review how to use the formula and also how to just count and everything. And we're going to be looking at how slope plays in with two types of lines, which are parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So here, parallel lines. This is a picture of some parallel lines. Some of you might already know what parallel means, some of you might not, but parallel lines are two lines on a plane that never meet and are always the same distance apart. So they, that's what they are. They go the same direction is sort of one way people say it a lot. Oh, sorry. And so they continue on forever and never meet. So we have two parallel lines here. We have, and let's just look at two line segments, AB and CD. So what are the slopes of those two lines? Well, the slope of AB, if I look at it, right, I look at the way it looks, remember slope is rise over run. So here, the rise is 7 up, and 5 to the right. And remember, it's always right. So my slope is 7 over 5. Okay, now the slope of CD, if I look at it there, also up 7 over 5. So the slope of CD is also 7 over 5. So here, what we're supposed to notice, and I am sure some of you have, is that the slopes of parallel lines have to be the same. They have to be exactly the same. So if I'm told that a line has a slope of 4, then a line parallel to it must also have a slope of 4. It's actually really crazy how often this concept is going to come up later. In particular, and I know this is not for all of you at all, but in particular, if you're going to continue on through Dash 1 and you have like calculus in your sights at the end of high school, then this stuff comes up constantly. So knowing that parallel lines have the same slope, okay, is really what we're trying to get to here. So here, this is a typical type of problem. So it says a line GH passes through G at -4 and 2 and H at 2 and -1. Line JK passes through J -1, 7 and K 7, 3. And then line MN passes through M -4, 5 and N 5, 1. So this is really a similar, common type of question. So let's look at what it would look like here. I'm just gonna. Okay, first of all, let's draw these. This might take longer than I like, but I'm gonna do it. So if we have our axes like this, let's say, oh, maybe not like that. Here, actually, I'm gonna put it over to here, and then well. Oh, okay. How do I do this? There we go. Okay, so that's my X and Y axis, and I'm going to mark these points. So if I have a little circle, I'm going to draw it as a little circle there. Okay, we'll do these points all one at a time. So G, -4, 2 would be right here. Okay, that's G, -4, 2. And H, 2, -1. So if I put H, 2, -1, there it is. And I'll just put a line between them. So if I have a line that I could connect them with, I'm going to do it in, I'll do kind of a thicker, and I'll do it in red. Okay, so I'm going to try to connect these 2 points. It's kind of hard to do, right? Okay, so well, we'll do our best. Okay, there we go. Okay, that pretty much goes through them anyway. Okay, looks not too bad. So there we go. There's our first line through G and H. And then we have to do the same thing with J and K. And I know this seems like really time consuming. It is a little bit, to be honest. And that's, that's how things go. So we have to mark those points, J and K. Sorry, I'm going to copy this again. So our points J and K if we want to put them places, j is at -1, 7. So j is at -1 and 7 way up here. And 7 and 3 is where k is. So 7 and 3. I have barely just enough room here. Okay, so I have that line that connects them. Oh, and you know what? Even just the fact I didn't have to move that line around sort of implies to me that it might be parallel. It might just be like close, so we'll have to check for sure. But then m at -4 and 5, and that's right around there, and n at 5 and 1. Okay. So there we go. I've graphed all these and I connected them and looked at them. Now it's not just enough to look, because like, see, this one doesn't really seem like it works quite as well, but it's pretty close too. It's not enough to just look, because if I just looked at this, like if I was just given this drawing and asked, are these on parallel, I wouldn't be sure. Some of you might be more confident than me. But personally, I think they look kind of parallel. I think the first two, the ones on the outside, look more parallel. The one in the middle looks a little crooked, but it's really hard to tell. So what you have to do is you have to find the slope between the lines. So first, I do the slope of GH. Okay, and remember that the equation for slope, okay, the equation for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I want everyone by the end of today, you know, I know I'm not there, so maybe tomorrow at the latest, to feel really confident using this formula. So I want to use this formula. Y2 and y1 are the y values of my 2 points. So usually what I say is I'm like, this one's y1 and this one's y2. That's just what I do. I always name the first one 1, the second one 2. So here when I'm doing this, yeah, I'm putting -1 first, then subtracting 2, and the same thing on the bottom. Okay, the 2 is x2, and the -4 is x1. So I go 2 minus -4. Okay, and I get it looking like this. Okay, so I have -1 minus 2 on top. I have 2 minus -4 on the bottom. So I just do that math, you know, on my calculator if I have to, or in my head if it's possible. But even if you're doing it in your head, please check on the calculator. So -1 minus 2 is -3, and 2 minus -4 is 6. And you need to put that into lowest terms. So that's -1 over 2. Okay, in lowest terms. So I'll just put it all out here so you can see it. Okay, so GH, okay, I put it in. I put -1 minus 2, 2 minus -4. Look, I have minus negative. Okay, -1 minus 2 is -3. 2 minus -4 is +6. So I end up with -1 over 2. Okay, and now I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other 2 points. So with JK, okay, I do the exact same thing. I start off and I'm like, okay, so this is y2, so I start with 3, and then I use 7. So it's always the second numbers first. Okay, then 7 from this one, the k of the 7, minus -1. Okay, so I have 3 minus 7 over 7 minus -1. Okay, so it looks like this. Okay, 3 minus 7, 7 minus -1, which then if I actually do that, 3 minus 7 is -4, 7 minus -1 is 8, which again is -1 over 2. So I was right when I said they look more parallel. They are parallel. Okay, so since they're exactly the same, -1 over 2, that means they're parallel. So I'm going to do the exact same process out with the last one. So mn. So I have y1 and y2. Sorry, y2 would be 1. y1 would be 5. So I do 1 minus 5, then 5 minus negative 4, and I get negative 4 over 9 if I do that out. So I'll just show it here. So if I do the exact same thing, I start with 1 minus 5 and 5 minus negative 4, and I do that. So 1 minus 5 is negative 4, 5 minus negative 4 is 9. Okay. So here, my answer that I should get at the end, okay, so the answer that I should get when I'm all done is the lines GH and JK are parallel because they have the same slope. Okay? And that is the answer to this question. Okay? Okay, so they are parallel because they have the same slope. They both have a slope of negative 1 over 2. And if you don't simplify all the way, if you don't like do your whole simplification, you might not be able to tell if two lines have the same slope. So here we can tell they do, because we simplified them, we got negative 1. Negative 4 over 9 is not the same, so that means basically it's not parallel. They have to be the same to be parallel. Okay? So the other type of lines, okay, that we're going to talk about are perpendicular. Okay, so perpendicular lines are not parallel. They do not have the same slope. They have different slopes. But perpendicular means something really specific. So perpendicular lines are lines that form a 90-degree angle where they meet. They make like a perfect kind of T or X, where there's a perfect corner where they meet each other. Okay, so they're totally opposite is what they are. So you'll notice here if we look at these ones that the line CD is going down, first of all, hopefully. So it's going down 4 over 3. Okay, and the other one, AB, is going up 4 over 3. Okay, so our slopes are 4/3, okay, 4/3 and negative 3/4. Okay, so, and you know what, I don't really like how they have this, to be completely honest with you right now. I don't really like how that looks. I would write it instead, if I was going to write that, which, you know, I probably did write that, but now if I was going to write it, I would write it like this, negative 3/4. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that. Sorry. Okay, so if I just have negative 3/4 like that, that's how I would prefer to see it written. So you can see how they're related. Okay, so they're complete opposites. The 4 and the 3 switched places. So instead of being 4 over 3, now it's 3 over 4. And instead of being positive 4 over 3, now it's negative 3 over 4. So the sign changed, and also they flipped. Now we call that flipping, we call that reciprocals. So what we call these is we call them negative reciprocals because they're both, one of them's positive, one of them's negative, and they're reciprocals. Okay, so anyway, let's kind of look at what that means. So here it says, okay, a line PQ passes through negative 7, 2, and Q negative 2, 10. Line RS passes through 3, negative 4, and 5, 1. Are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Justify. So as soon as you see something like this where it's like PQ, it tells you the 2 points, you have to find slope. Okay, so you do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 would be 10, y1 would be 2. So it's 10, and maybe I'll just show you me typing here, 10 minus 2. Okay, then on the bottom, I start with negative 2, so I start with negative 2, and I subtract negative 7, so I go minus, and I have to put in brackets negative 7, like that. Okay, then I do the math there. So 10 minus 2 is 8. Negative 2 minus negative 7. That's a hard one. Definitely something I would type into a calculator. It's 5. Okay? So PQ is 8 over 5. Then I need to do the exact same thing, but with RS. Okay, so let's start from blank. Now RS, okay, so I start with the number 1, and I subtract negative 4, because that's the next thing. And then I start with 5, and I subtract negative 3. Okay, so 1 minus negative 4 is 5. 5 minus negative 3 is 8. Perfect. Okay. So now the question is, are these points parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Well, remember, parallel means same, and perpendicular means negative reciprocals. Okay? So for them to be parallel, they have to be the same, and for them to be perpendicular, they have to be negative reciprocals. So are they the same? Hopefully everyone knows they're not the same. 8 over 5 and 5 over 8 aren't the same. I know they have the same two numbers, but they're not the same. Okay? Negative reciprocals, well, they're reciprocals, because one's 8 over 5, one's 5 over 8, that's reciprocals, but they're not negative. There's no negative there. So the answer here would be they are neither, because they are not the same and are not negative reciprocals. Okay? So that would be the answer. They are neither. And you're going to be asked questions like this for sure. Okay? Today, in fact, you're going to have them on a worksheet. So you find the two slopes. You just do your slope work. Find the two slopes and ask yourself, are they the same? Are they negative reciprocals? And if both answers are no, then it's neither. If they're the same, it's parallel. If they're negative reciprocals, it's perpendicular. Okay, so here's one. It says, this one's a little trickier. It says, well, not really, but it says determine the slope of a line that is perpendicular to the line through EF. So right away, I see 2 points. I know I'm going to have to find slope. So I just do it, like right away. So I do negative 1 minus 3. So I start with the two last numbers, and then I do negative 4 minus 2, and I get negative 4 over negative 6. Now this is a great one to do because it's good for simplifying. First of all, if you have two negatives, make it a positive. Okay, and then I can divide 4 and 6 both by 2. So I get 2 over 3. So I divide 4 by 2, I get 2. I divide 6 by 2, I get 3. And the negatives go away. So my slope here of E to F is 2/3. Okay? So for question A, the slope of line perpendicular, well, remember, perpendicular points have to perpendicular lines have to have negative reciprocals. So it's going to have to be the reciprocal of 2 over 3. Okay, so what's the reciprocal of 2 over 3? It's 3 over 2. And it has to be negative reciprocal. So since that was positive, perpendicular is going to have to be negative. So the answer is that my perpendicular line is going to have a slope of negative 3 over 2. This next question, determine the coordinate of G, is actually a really tough question. So I might save it until I'm there in person so I can draw it out and really show you. I don't want to have to do that on the computer. I'm sure it'll just end up being confusing. So we'll skip it for now, but we'll get back to it. I honestly, it's a little beyond what I would generally ask anyway on a test. So, but we'll see it because it's a little interesting. But being able to answer this question is a pretty basic one. So the slope was 2/3, so a perpendicular line would have to be negative 3 over 2. Now I want to do one more. You're going to be given a question just like this today, and there's one on the test and on the quiz that's pretty close to this. There's always variations of them. So this question wants to know is this parallelogram? So they're telling us it's a parallelogram. They want to know if it's a rectangle. Okay, sometimes they just show you a picture and they ask if it's a parallelogram. So a parallelogram means that for this to be a parallelogram, it means that A and D is parallel to B and C, and that A and B is parallel to D and C. So it's telling you the sides across from each other are parallel. That's what it's telling you. On the quiz, I believe the question is a triangle, and they ask you if it's a right angle triangle. So is it a right triangle? And if it is, that means one of the corners has to be 90 degrees, which means two of the sides have to be perpendicular, and you're checking. So really what we need to do here is we need to check the slopes of AB and AD. Or, I mean, you could pick different ones. You could pick AD and DC, or AB and BC. It doesn't really matter, but you need to pick two of the lines that meet, because what we're checking is, are they perpendicular? Because for it to be a rectangle, rectangles have 90-degree angles. So we're checking, is this angle 90 degrees? Okay, so we just do rise over run here. I wouldn't use the formula. I would just look at the picture. So A and B, if I look at A and B, if I start on the left, you should always start on the left, it goes down 4 over 1. So it's down 4 over 1, which is -4 if you want to write it like that. Okay, now AD, if I do it this way, it's up 2, I start on the left again, so at A, up 2 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So up 2 over 8, which is 1 over 4. Okay, so there we go, we found them. Now here, we have -4 over 1 and +1 over 4. So those are what we call negative reciprocals. They are perpendicular. This means they form a 90-degree angle where they meet, and this must be a rectangle. Okay, that would be the answer. Okay, to be honest, I don't need a nice, I know some of you wouldn't give it to me even if I did, but I don't need a sentence this descriptive. Just having it say that you show the two slopes, say, okay, they're perpendicular, so it is a rectangle, is enough. But I need to see the slopes. Like, when you are given a problem like this, if you don't show slopes, you are getting 0 points. So the question on the quiz, I'm pretty sure it tells you that. It says to use slopes, but a lot of students will just draw a picture and then say, oh, yep, it is, or no, it isn't a right angle triangle just based on the picture, and they don't get any points, and it's pretty brutal. Okay, so I'm going to have the sub give you out a handout on this. It's going to be handed in. So complete it, please, to the best of your abilities. We will have 10-15 minutes to go over this tomorrow. Have some additional time, like 10-15 minutes total to work on it. So, but try to get it done as much as possible. Sorry I'm not there today. I'm just really not feeling well. But I'm sure you guys will get lots done. Okay, so get going.